So what's on top today is we will have an explanation about what is financial capability from Margaret Sheridan, and then Denise Devon from ICF will talk about your money, your goals toolkit, and then we'll do Q&A, and then we'll have a wrap-up and then an evaluation. Sound like a plan? All right, we'll get started. Margaret?
Thanks, Gina, and welcome, everyone. We're very pleased to partner with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and the Council on Social Work Education on this webinar about household finances and social work education. Before we begin, though, I want to express our appreciation to the National Endowment for Financial Education, whose support made the survey on household finances and social work education possible. This is a survey that most of you have probably already taken. If you know anyone who has not taken that survey, please encourage them to do so. There'll be another reminder coming out. We really want to thank you for your participation in the survey. The findings will guide this curriculum development in social work. So what is this work? What is financial capability? This first part that I'll be leading will really focus on the relevance of financial capability in the field of social work. So in this short segment, before Denise turns to Your Money, Your Goals, the curriculum from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, I'll talk about financial struggles of American families. I'm going to present a short fable, composite stories of two young ladies and their financial capability. We'll talk about that framework and the role of social work. So, to begin, financial struggles of American families. This has become a very poignant issue in the current context. We have rising economic inequality, families are struggling, and uncertain about the future. Income and wealth is increasingly going to the most affluent in society. Since 2000, real wages have stagnated over a longer period than that, but they've declined even more in lower income households while increasing in upper income households. Wealth inequality is growing, especially in minority and ethnic families, ethnic minority families. In 2013, for example, median household wealth was $142,000 for white families, 10 times higher than the $14,000 in Latino households and 13 times higher than the $11,000 of wealth held in African American households, according to Pew Research Center. Families feel strapped, worried that they're falling behind, like they and their children will not do as well as their parents. So they seek guidance, information, and opportunities to build financial stability and security, and often turn to social workers. Social workers have an important and unique way to contribute to the well-being of these families. In fact, at the turn of the last century, 100 years ago, social workers helped families with their household budgets and worked with others to establish savings banks. But over the course of the 20th century, this work diminished. Only recently has it experienced a resurgence in response to the challenging financial trends and growing numbers of families facing financial devastation and stagnation in wages. Today, the increasing financialization of everyday lives has made financial capability a necessity. It is no longer possible to live in a cash economy. So let's spend a couple of minutes talking about what we mean by financial capability. I'll do this by way of these two young women, Jaya and Mahala. This is a sort of story that you can use with your students to them understand how we approach financial capability in the social work profession. So Jaya and Mahala are similar in many ways. They're both 16-year-old high school students. They're both good students. They're taking a financial education class, doing everything that they should be doing to prepare for adult financial lives. Their families struggle financially. They live in low-income neighborhoods. Their parents use alternative financial services like a check cashing store instead of a bank. But their situation differs in important ways. So let's begin with Jaya. Jaya's taking her financial education class, and as her teacher tells her, she goes to the bank to open a checking account and finds that because of the minimum deposit and required monthly balance, she can't have a checking account. So the teller suggests that instead she open a savings account. She uses the ATM. Hang on, I jumped too far ahead here. Oh, it didn't go back. There we go. She has to remember to deposit her paycheck, but she doesn't track very closely like a lot of teenagers. And when she cuts back on work hours when the school year starts, her balance falls below the minimum, and she starts incurring fees. She becomes discouraged and talks to her mother about it, and her mother says, "Why don't you just use the grocery store to cash your checks? It's only $3 to cash a check." So Jaya starts instead to save her money in a jar at home instead of the bank. She withdraws her money, puts it at home. Unfortunately, as we know from behavioral economics, when your money is available closely and at hand, it's much easier to spend. After high school, when she starts a low-wage job, she follows her mother's example when she can't make ends meet and turns to a payday lender for emergency loans. They're nice. Everyone at the store in the community uses them. They're not intimidating, and she can also pay her utility bills at the payday lending store. There's high interest, but she thinks she can handle it. Anyway, she has no other option. Her experience with the bank leaves Jaya with a negative view of financial institutions and her own financial capability. So let's turn to Mahala. Mahala's experience is somewhat different, although she's also taking her financial education class. But instead, she's also enrolled in a college savings plan. This college savings plan is a program that's being run by the school and a local nonprofit. It makes a seed deposit into her college plan and also tells her that she will receive a milestone deposit at graduation. That seed deposit is $300, and when she graduates, she'll receive another $500, in addition to the money that she will be depositing from her job in a restaurant. She arranges with her employer for direct deposit, and the local credit union offers low checking account fee and no fee savings youth accounts. She transfers $50 a month automatically to savings, and at the end of the year transfers this money into her college savings account. As a result, she has savings, she avoids debt, and she begins to feel like she has a future. She has a deposit, money in her savings account that's dedicated to going to college. She feels actively engaged in a positive financial life. She's low income, but she has opportunities that were denied to Jaya to build college savings, feels a mastery about money management and feeling security that her money is safe. In this case, Mahala is learning and doing. She's learning money management and earning and saving money along with gaining financial literacy. So who is financially capable? Both young women received an A in their financial education class. Mahala is financially capable because she applied the lessons from her financial education class. She feels in control of her financial life, perhaps building personal resilience. She's accumulating college savings and a pathway to a better future. But Jaya lacked these opportunities. The future is unknown, but this early experience may set Mahala and Jaya on different pathways to adult financial roles. Jaya is not alone. We, as social workers, work with many financially vulnerable populations. These include survivors of intimate partner violence, low-income children and youth and their families, immigrants and refugees, people living with disabilities, minority populations, the rural poor, vulnerable older adults, people transitioning from prison, foster children and youth, and many others. Many of these populations also lack the kinds of opportunities that Mahala had and are more similar to Jaya. Well, let's turn briefly to the framework of financial capability. It's a simple framework that suggests that when people have an opportunity to act, they're financially included, as Mahala was, and they have an ability to act. They've picked up financial knowledge and skills. In the case of the two young women we just talked about, they learned some of these skills. Together, those two things, the opportunity to act and the ability to act, combine, they interact to create financial well-being. And by financial well-being, we are talking about sufficient income, assets, ability to regulate spending, the ability to get credit, and to protect their financial assets. This idea of financial capability is based on capability theory that probably most of you are familiar with. Amartya Sen and Martha Nussbaum have written the most about. So why social work? Social workers work with the most vulnerable populations, and we're guided by a person and environment perspective. This is important because it overlaps well with capability theory. We understand that it's not just individual behavior that frames what people are able to do in their lives, but that it takes into account the institutions that surround them. So this dovetails, our person and environment perspective in social work dovetails well with capability theory. Social workers work at all levels. They work at the micro, meso, and macro practice levels. So if Jaya had the opportunity to gain new skills as well as access to financial institutions, financial products, and policies, she too might be able to accomplish her full potential. So just a couple more slides before we turn to your money, your goals, and some tools that you can use in the classroom. Social workers engage in micro-practice in the area of financial capability. We determine clients' financial conditions. We help them clarify and meet financial goals. We help them solve financial conflicts that may occur in the family or outside. We help them access financial benefits and increase income, teach financial management, and create financial savings spending plans, reduce debt, and accumulate and protect assets. At the meso and macro level, we defend and increase income supports, do financial coaching, counseling, and education, and create programs to provide those kinds of services. We facilitate quality financial services, create employment and business opportunities, develop asset accumulation policies and programs, collaborate for specialized assistance because much of what people may need is specialized in the legal or taxation sectors. We act to protect consumers and regulate financial services and conduct research and build evidence. So let me just say a little bit in my final couple of minutes about our research in financial capability and asset building, research, education, and practice. As many of you know, there is a grand challenge in social work called Financial Capability and Asset Building for All. This is being led by Ji Huang, Julie Birkenmeyer, and myself, along with our colleagues who are leading work groups on policy, research, education, and practice. We welcome all of you to join the FCAB, that's our short name for FCAB, FCAB Grand Challenge Network, and you can contact Gina to get in touch and to participate in that. You may have participated or known about two convenings that we've held, which have resulted in 3 special issues in social work education, in the Journal of Social Work and the Journal of Community Practice, where many social workers have published their research on financial capability and asset building. And we will probably be having another convening organized at the SSWR meetings in January in Washington, D.C., and you should be hearing about that soon. We would welcome your participation at that convening. It will probably happen the day before SWR starts. Finally, we have created an FCAB curriculum, and soon this will be published by Oxford University Press, Financial Capability in Vulnerable Households, Theory and Practice textbook that will be a resource for the classroom. Let me stop there and ask Gina if any questions have come up that we, technical issues. Okay. So let me just say now that we are pleased to partner with the CFPB, and today with a great friend of social work, Denise DeVan. Denise has had years of experience working with government agencies, nonprofits, and financial institutions to develop financial empowerment programs. As you will soon discover, Denise is a gifted instructor and trainer. Today, she'll introduce us to the CFPB's Your Money, Your Goals, a valuable resource for social service practitioners working with financially vulnerable families. Thanks very much, and I'll turn it over to Denise.
Thank you so much, Margaret and Gina, our dear, dear, dear colleagues in the field. On behalf of Patty Avery and Yulia Razad and Daniel Dodd Ramirez and Desmond Brown and so many others, from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, they all are in the Office of Financial Empowerment. It's my privilege to represent them today. This is their work. Our job is to work behind the scenes and help them to be successful in what they're trying to accomplish. And so I'm going to show you this slide, this toolkit, which many of you have heard about, and I just can't say how delighted the larger and small team is to be able to partner with Gina and with Margaret and with each of you, but also the Center for Social Development and FCAB in bringing this particular resource to you. I've just come from Dakota County. I had the privilege this morning of being with almost 125 social workers from Dakota County. And I want to share with you this most amazing experience, because in the room we had people who were in-home visitors. We had people in the entire part of the child welfare system, foster youth, all of it. We had people that were in every aspect of income maintenance, from TANF to the workforce centers to housing. We had people who were connected to Veteran Affairs and worked directly with people who've come back from Iraq and Afghanistan and many other parts of the world. We had people in the room that were legal services attorneys and other partners. We had people in the room that work in juvenile justice and adult justice and reentry. And we had people in the room that work with people who have disabilities, both intellectual disabilities and every other disability that we know of, from brain injury to physical disabilities. It was such a mixed group. Dakota County in Minnesota is one of the fastest growing counties and is also known to be real innovators, and they take a lot of risks. And so they're taking a lot of risks around financial capability, and they are climbing a mountain. And the mountain they're climbing is the mountain that Margaret spoke to you, and Gina, of course, too, so well, and that each of you are a part of. And the mountain is to bring financial literacy, but it's also to bring financial capability into the lives of social workers, and most importantly, to integrate it into the work of all their various programs. And this takes enormous, enormous effort. They have measures, they have worked so hard to track what they're doing, and the county board, which is known to be so conservative, never raising taxes, always having savings in the bank. The county board is so behind this effort that they've created 2 positions at the county level on financial capability and financial literacy and financial resources. And I just can't tell you how inspiring it was. The stories that I heard were very much in alignment with what Margaret just said. 2 roads, 2 tracks. One leads to capability, one leads to the opposite. And these are your colleagues who've been trained in your universities and trained in your classrooms and are now in the field rolling up their sleeves, and they're learning themselves about their own money lives. To the person, they went out of the room and said, I need to use this in my family, with my children, with my grandchildren, and of course with my clients. So that's just, I just can't help but share this with you. It's just perfect it just couldn't be more perfect for today. This particular toolkit has been revised a few times, and I just want to give you a few milestones. You should know that it's written in very plain language. It's free. It's public domain. It's available in English and in Spanish. And along with it are many other resources I'll be able to share with you very briefly. All of the slides are available to you because of our partnership with you. All the training materials that are already done, all the notes, all the talking points, all the exercises, all of that is free and available to you to use as much of or as little of as you want. So far, through today, about 15,000 frontline staffers throughout the country and in each of 50 states, including Puerto Rico, have been trained in this toolkit. North Dakota was the very last state, and the North Dakota staff, the extension educators, used the gold and green colors of North Dakota State University and created cupcakes that said 50 on it. And at the same time, the staff in Washington, D.C. had a great cake that said 50 on it. And I wouldn't say there was a race, but the staff in Washington ate that cake because it was such a milestone for them, very, very quickly. You should know that this toolkit has been used in a variety of situations. Lots of national, regional, state, and local, hundreds, frankly, of organizations have brought the toolkit into their work. These are social workers. These are case workers. These are legal aid attorneys. These are community volunteers. So just quickly, I just want to share a couple of contexts. Some community-based organizations and some public entity organizations, again, filled with social workers, case workers, are using it as kind of a self-study because they know that they themselves need to increase the learning curve and the confidence curve and the practice curve on how to use the material. So throughout the country, there are study groups going on of people who are trainer light, facilitators, or people who are just workers in any of these programs. That's one way. Another way, we had a big CAP agency in Knoxville, Tennessee that trained everybody in the building, the bus drivers, the food service workers, the Head Start teachers, everyone. No one got away from it. Everybody got trained on some aspect or many aspects. The Louisiana workforce system closed the doors in every workforce center in the state, a mandated training for everyone. It was only an hour and a half. All we could do were the basics. And then finally, another example. this is a group of NAACP leaders in California, and one gentleman, I just was so impressed with him, probably 6'3", elder statesman in his family. They were having a huge family reunion, and after we went through the cash flow and credit and debt exercises, he announced that before any hot dog was going to be served in their family reunion, every single person was going to do the cash flow exercise because he wanted something different for his grandchildren than was currently being done. So that's a little bit of background. I have to do this disclaimer. All this says is that I'm just sharing information with you and not giving you any advice. We're going to do an orientation and an overview of the toolkit. We're going to share a few stories. We're going to do some exercises that you could do in the classroom, kind of real practical, hands-on. Of course, questions are welcomed, comments are welcomed, and your own experience and insight welcomed. Please use the chat function. And by the time we're done, you'll know how to take action with the students that you work with. Some of you, of course, work in the community, and of course your social work students are immersed in the community, but there'll be lots of opportunities to know how to practically use this stuff, okay? So let's talk a little bit about the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. I like to say consumer because it's anybody in the country. It doesn't matter if anybody's a citizen or not. It doesn't matter what walk, where they are in life. Anyone in this country, anyone is underneath the purview of this agency or the Bureau. Financial, this is all about money, protection, underscore. It was created after the crash of 2008, and Bureau, of course, it's a federal agency. The mission impossible, I like to say affectionately, is to really try to make all the products and services, any way in which money is handled, to make it understandable and usable and friendly to the ordinary consumer, most of us have never learned any of this stuff in our families or in our schools or in our churches or synagogues or places of worship. The entire country is in a learning curve. There are three big functions at the CFPB. One is empowerment, one is enforcement, and one is education. We're kind of underneath the empowerment umbrella right now to really, and education too, to try to bring resources to the ordinary consumer. And the strategy they use is to work through intermediaries. So you are faculty members. You have arms and legs in your communities, and all the people that you teach underneath your leadership, they will reach communities. And after this training today, whether you like it or not, you are now and will be an ambassador of this work, because there's very few staff in D.C. All the work, most of it is done through intermediaries and partnerships like we have now at the Center for Social Development. Enforcement, of course, is the big enforcement arm with banks and credit cards and a lot of that job is to make sure everybody follows the rules, follows what's supposed to be done. You should know as of today, $29 billion. I'm going to say $billion. $29 billion in 5 years has been returned to consumers from the kinds of enforcement actions to many entities who never followed the rules. They really work with low to moderate income and low wealth and otherwise financially underserved and vulnerable. So that's kind of the purview of the office. There's many offices, but this is the purview that we're working under right now. This is the website. I'm not going to show you the website. I want you to know that it ought to be and should be a go-to resource for you. You can trust it. Of course, it has to pass all the legal standards and all the updated information on credit card companies and mortgages and remittances and anything that has to do with money. So there's consumer tools, there's how to buy a home, there's how to look at student loans, there's Ask the CFPB. You can submit a complaint on anything whatsoever. Complaints can be taken in 184 different languages. There's a lot of research that's being done. So, for example, you might sit or you might ask your social work students to be an advocate and sit with someone who's going to report some abuse of some kind, some kind of scam, something that just isn't right. I'll just say it that way. It just isn't right. and people are being taken advantage of. Well, that reporting that could come from you or from me, that turns into research, and that turns into enforcement. And they all kind of work together. So know that you are critical, your eyes and ears on the ground, and you ask these social work students to be the eyes and ears. And even if they don't have all the facts and all the data, they can tell the story, and the staff will respond. I can't tell you the number of stories I've heard around the country of immediate responses and of resolution that's come. People who've been really hurt in student loans with private servers, and they've been able to get some of their student loan money back. People who have struggled around their credit reports and credit cards, and there's been a resolution. I don't have time to go into it all. Just trust us. Use this resource. The Your Money, Your Goal was for legal services, was for community volunteers, was for workers under the AFL-CIO, and was for social work types. And now there's just one. And on this page, there are other resources. There's a new guide for Native American communities. There's a new reentry guide for people coming out of prison. There's a brand new guide being done for persons with disabilities. It's hot off the press. It isn't public yet until the month of May, but that's right around the corner. You can sign up, and all this information is free. You can sign up and order toolkits. They're very expensive to publish, so please just get what you need. They're about 350 pages long. They come spiral bound. They come shrink wrapped, 3-hole punched, and you need a binder or a clip because there's a lot of information there. In the middle, there are free PowerPoint presentations. There's some free videos. But I just want to caution you that the version that's on there right now is the most up-to-date version, and that's the version that our colleagues at the Center for Social Development have put on the resource page, and I've got the updated training slides that go with it, which will be on your resource page. I wouldn't trust this part of the website yet. It'll be updated, but you'll have the best information. Data stories, telling your story. This is a story about a woman that she was threatened by a debt collector. It's illegal now to threaten in any way, shape, or form. But she was threatened to jail, and that was reported, and they were dealt with. Financial empowerment is really important. There's, of course, financial capability. The CFPB kind of looks at it this way, and it's just a little bit different way of describing the same thing that Margaret described so well. There's the financial literacy, and then there's having skills and confidence about what you're going to do with this knowledge, and that's empowerment. So, for example, you and I know how critical the credit report is. It is our financial resume. Without it, oh my gosh, we are paying higher interest rates. We are being refused in being able to rent a place. Sometimes we're refused a job. Our life insurance premiums, anything that has to do with credit, interest rates, all that stuff is affected by the report and the score. So it's one thing to know that. It's another thing to be able to download, or not download, but to open up annualcreditreport.com, which is the safe, secure way to get this. Open it up, and then to have the courage to look at the credit report, to see what's in it, and then to fix what's wrong. Boy, that takes a skill set, and most people can't do it alone. That's where social workers and advocacy comes in, sitting with someone, and then they get to empowerment. It's one thing to know how important it is to cash flow, to come in the black every week, not just a monthly budget, but every week. It's another thing to actually do it. So that's what we're talking about. These social work students, they need to learn how to do this for themselves. And once they do that for themselves, they will be on fire to help the people that they work with. And why you? Why them? Because they are the trusted other. Your social work students will be the trusted other for these families, more so than the parish priest or the minister or the rabbi, more so than the banker, more so than, the town father, the town mother. It's your social worker is the trusted other. So the more we can shore them up with what they need and everything in their quiver, the better off they will be able to spread this kind of news and this kind of support. This is an exercise that I've used a lot in the classroom and I've used a lot in training sessions, and it's really fun to use. I want to tell you about this. We're not going to do it, of course, but this is a debate that because a lot of people say, I have no time, I can't really do this work, I've got so many cases, and on and on and on it goes, and there's a lot of resistance. I'm not going to go into what the resistance is all about. There's just resistance. So you could set up a simple scenario. The great county of X or the great human service agency of Y is going to have a meeting of its executive leadership team. They're trying to decide whether or not they're going to make room in a person's day to get educated about financial literacy and to be able to bring these tools and resources to the people they serve. One team needs to say why we should do this, and the other team says why we should not. And they each list all the arguments, and they come before the leaders, and they actually lay out their arguments, and the leaders then vote. And it's a great way to get all the arguments out, all the naysayers, everything out, and they're able to come to, maybe we better do this, because it's going to help our outcomes, because people actually can get to self-sufficiency, because money actually cuts across every program, everything, all right? The benefit and cost analysis goes along with it. What's the benefit of doing this and what's the cost? And then we get to the outcomes, all the outcomes that have to be covered. The orientation of the toolkit is what I want to do next. The toolkit is broken down to a couple different sections. One has to do with introductory stuff. The other has to do with content. So let me go back here quickly. In the introduction, there's the introduction to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, but then there's this area called understanding the situation. I'll get to that in a second. There's a whole thing about how do you start the money conversation, and what about emotions and values and culture? What's behind the money decisions that people make? So a mother who does pedicures and manicures, and the caseworker who sits across the table and can't afford a pedicure and a manicure, a lot of judgment will come up. And when you go underneath all that, why? That mother that's doing the pedicure and manicure, even when there isn't enough food in the house, you find out that she's going to the parent-teacher conference like everybody else and doesn't want anybody to know she's poor. Or the runaway and homeless youth who pays for a cell phone when there's no food, no clothes, no transportation, no job, no place to sleep. Why? So they can stay connected. Or to the devout person in his or her religion that will do tithing as the first thing they do even when there's no food. That's because of their values and their beliefs. Or the Latino and Latina family that has a lot of gatherings, and the Native American family. There's money involved when people get together. Other families don't gather as much. But the cultural value of bringing people together, or of having coming of age celebrations, or all the things that go on. Once we get underneath the money decisions people make, I think the message here the CFPB is saying is, let's avoid judgment. Because when there's judgment, the door is closed, and when the door is closed, there's no dialogue. And when there's no dialogue, there's no chance to get onto a different pathway toward financial stability. So underneath each of these topics, you see these other little squares, and these are basically worksheets. We call these tools tools. You pick one and you use it. So your social work student might use a financial empowerment checklist that's in the toolkit, and they'll say, I'm going to work with Jamal, and I'm going to work with Sally, and I'm going to work with Jemiah, and in each of these situations, I'll handle credit there, I'm going to handle debt here, and I'm going to handle cash flow there, and it's a simple tool to help them track what they do with who, when, where, and why. It's just a great, people love it. They put it in computers and they use it as a tracking thing. The one underneath it is a financial empowerment self-assessment. Everybody in the room at Dakota County took it today. Everyone did. And it asked questions like, I have enough money for emergencies. I've been to a payday lender. I have done this. I've got a banking account. I'm not worried about when my next meal is going to come, etc. And as they get through this financial empowerment self-assessment, this would be a great thing you could use in the classroom. Have all the social work students take it. It takes about 10 minutes. And they go through and they get to see what their money lives are like, what they need to know, and where they could go in the toolkit to learn more for themselves. It's all for them. It's all confidential. It's all private, never made public. But it is a great self-assessment that people can do in the family, in the classroom, in the community, in a staff meeting, etc. My Money Picture is an assessment that the social work student and the social worker can use with a client. And it starts out with, do you have any aspirations? Do you have anything you want to have happen for yourself or your children that cost money? Are you afraid of losing your home or of losing your rental? Are you afraid of your utilities being shut off? Can you count on the same amount of income every month? So these are like 10 or 15 questions. Nobody would ever in a million years ask people to fill it out. They would use the questions to try to get a sense, what's going on with this person and where do we start? The top money conversations has to do with the things that happen in life that no one plans on. Two people are married or partnered, and one person gets cancer. Now what? Two people think, or one person thinks they're going to retire, and all of a sudden an adult child comes home with two preschool children because of a job loss. Someone never been to college in their family, and yet the young person wants to go to trade school, but they don't have a clue how to finance it. All these sort of normal things that happen in life. Someone dies early and there's no plan to get to the funeral. So Top Money Conversations is an important exercise and a great set of resources. We get to the content module, setting goals, savings for emergencies and irregular bills, tracking and managing income, paying bills, getting through the month, dealing with debt, understanding credit, money services, cards, accounts, loans, finding what works for you, and protecting your money. These are the content modules. They're rich. They're deep. The content has changed because some of the laws have changed. And so if you've ever used an old toolkit, share it with somebody, but get the new one because it's got a lot of new stuff and a lot of really up-to-date stuff in it. So these are the tools. These are the worksheets. Goal setting. You know, what does it take to really set a goal? Maybe the goal is to pay my bills on time, and that's as good as it gets. But maybe a goal is to be able to buy a car, or maybe a goal is to get to school, or maybe a goal is to have enough resources to cover those irregular bills that throw us all off, whatever. And then planning for life events, planning for a child, planning for school, planning for a car, planning for the unexpected, and then buying a car. Savings, we really tackle savings really hard here. The belief here is not 3 to 6 months of savings. That is too big, too hard, too aspirational, and too depressing, frankly. $500 or less, there's so much research out there, so much has been written about this. $500 or less will tackle a lot of emergencies. And a lot of people will say they've got an emergency when really they kind of knew the oil had to be changed. They knew that school was going to start in the fall and that we needed school supplies. Kind of knew that the smart plugs were going to go out someday. Those are irregular bills. Those are not really emergencies, but they become emergencies if we don't plan for them. There's another tool in here because a lot of social workers and a lot of caseworkers are really afraid of that if anybody saves, they're going to lose their public benefits. And really, I haven't found this in the country at all. $200, $250 in a savings account or away isn't going to knock off a public benefit. But we say to everybody, you know your rules and you know your laws and you know your public benefit asset limits. So find out what they are and reassure people that they can put a little bit away for emergencies. Finding a safe place for saving, you know how important this is, a safe place and what the alternatives are. This tool helps people think through the pluses and the minuses and the advantages and disadvantages of where you put savings. And how to increase your income through tax credits. I'm going to show you something in a minute that is so, I can't say how critical it is to bring in the cash from earned income tax credit to seed $250 or $500 for emergency savings, to reduce unwanted debt, especially credit card debt, to set something aside to cash flow in the months that are so tight. Finally, in the next three go together, tracking what comes in, tracking what goes out, and putting it all together to make ends meet, or we call it getting through the month. So there's an income and resource tracker. Bias here is to put every resource together, public benefits, cash, loans, and you can reassure your social worker students that the government never sees this stuff. These are worksheets for clients. Ways to receive income and benefits. If people don't bank, how do they get paid? And it goes through that. Ways to increase income, and I affectionately say everywhere, legally, really important. And then the spending tracker goes through your normal buckets of spending, but we start with obligations and needs, and then we go to wants. Obligations, are the things that you got to do or you get in big trouble. Child support, paying your student loans, paying anything you've signed, like a mortgage, right? There's consequences for not paying those bills. And then getting to needs, just the basics, and then, of course, getting to wants. We help people do this with a calendar. Some people hate charts and just are, horrible in charts. We help people do it simply with a calendar. There's ways to pay bills, especially if they don't bank. It shows all the options. Strategies to cut expenses, like cutting the cell phone use. There's a lot of ways to cut expenses. And when cash is short, the CFPB doesn't say don't pay your bills. What the CFPB says is protect your income, protect your assets, protect getting to work, protect. Don't necessarily pay the squeaky wheel. Cover for whoever's yelling the loudest. Maybe that's not the first bill that has to get paid. Protect everything else. And then cash flow, making ends meet every week, not just every month. Then we get to debt and credit. Those often go together. And then we get to money services, accounts, and cards, and protecting your money. So in the debt area, first we track the debt. And the people who are really, really poor and people who are middle class and even people who are wealthy don't always know what their debt is. And that's not unusual. There's a lot of emotions that go around debt. And some people are in a frozen place. They don't know what it is. They can't track it. They just know when the tax man calls or the bill collector calls. So once we track it, then we figure out how much debt is too much debt. So we help people understand their debt to income ratio and what it should be to have some breathing room, right? Ideally. And then we get to how to reduce debt. We've got a couple of great methods to help people do that, and repaying student loans. All the ways you can repay student loans now that weren't available before, especially the federal stuff, not the private stuff so much. And then when debt collectors call. These are all tools, they're worksheets, they're checklists, they're easy to use. Oh, I can't say enough. Then we get into credit. The bias here is to pull the credit report and to look at it, and to see it, and to see the buckets of information that are in it, and to look to see if it's accurate. And then the next one is about making it right. So there's a review checklist. Is my name right? Is my Social Security number right? Are the addresses right? Is the right information about me there? Is the debt accurate? Is there anything on there that's not mine? Which I must say, in my career, which has been long now, in all the work I've done, I have yet to see a credit report that's accurate the first time someone pulls it. It could be really minor things, or it could be major things, like the refinance of a house, and it never got reported that the loan was paid off because, of all the refinancing that's gone on. But other things, like so many Rafael Ortegas, or other things like there was a divorce and dissolution, but the other person's stuff keeps showing up. All kinds of things are on that credit report. And then we finally get to know what you need. That particular tool in money services is the CFPB doesn't say open up a bank account. They don't do it. They don't say don't use a check place. Everybody says why? Because they're about empowerment. They want you to know what are the pros, what are the cons, what are the advantages, what are the disadvantages. And in that way, they're being good educators and good empowerment specialists. So that's a good thing. But there's not enough direction for some. You shouldn't go to a payday lender. Well, okay, what are the pros and cons? Once people understand that for themselves, then they're more able to own their actions. That's what the belief is, anyway. Then we get to banking. What does it take to really open an account? Do you have to have a Social Security number to open an account? And the answer is no. You can open up a bank account with an ITIN number. Do you have to be a citizen to have a bank account? Absolutely not. So there's a lot of misinformation out there, and this corrects it. And then finally, in protecting your money, it shows how to submit a complaint. Any complaint, even if all the facts aren't there, how to do it, how to protect identity, how to get our names off of all the do not call lists and all the ways in which our information is shared. Red flags that come up, pay attention to the red flags. There is no free lunch, period. And then finally, learning more about consumer protection. I don't know of any resource in the country that has all the consumer laws in one place. So that's the overview. Now, your social work students are not expected to be experts in bankruptcy or experts in deep credit and debt issues. When they get a job, they're not expected to do this unless that becomes their line of work. So we want to encourage them to always make good referrals. If there's a bankruptcy issue, the legal aid attorney in the community. If there's a threat of foreclosure, the foreclosure prevention people. If there's a threat of losing utilities, on and on, the energy assistance provider. If deep credit and debt issue, then, that's the credit and debt counselor. And the nonprofits in the country, we have locators that are available where people put in a zip code and there is free support to people, either by a national phone number or a local resource. And this is the guide, and our colleagues will have this, and it's available to you. I've already mentioned to you the financial empowerment checklist. We've already talked about that. I want you to know as an educator, this is what the training set looks like. There's a slide like I've used, like spending, needs, wants, and obligations. Needs are things you must have. Wants are things that you could survive without. Obligations are the things that you must pay or you get in deep, deep trouble. Well, underneath that, if you print it out in the notes section, in a PowerPoint, you print it. You can either print the slide or you print the page with notes in it. Underneath the notes is the exercise. This says it takes 30 minutes. We did it at the Center for Social Development, I think in about 15 minutes. You can cut the time down and just use a couple of examples. But it's all there for you, and it's free. Here's the instructions. It'll tell you what to use, and just follow it along. The methodologies in the training that you could use in the classroom, there's openers, there's icebreakers, there's presentation, there's facilitated discussion and brainstorming, individual activities, large and small group activities, pairs, a lot of pair exercises, carousels where you go from one table to the next, contests, debates, scavenger hunts, role plays, skits, tool analysis, and voting with your body. It is so interactive, and there's no lectures. Well, I don't know if you like that or not, but there's no lectures. This is a real hands-on kind of thing, using the Socratic method. But these are the activities that go with everything. I'm not going to go through all this, but this is available. There's an activity for every topic. Every single topic has got an activity. So some of them have got 3 activities, and you can choose one. And so even if you don't know the topic, I say affectionately to all the caseworkers, just be 2 pages ahead. But you're professors, you're smart, and the content is all there for you. Choose a few topics, but all the activities are here. And I can tell you that young people love doing these because they do it, they get it, they feel it, they learn it, and it's intellectual and experienced, both. They hold on to it, and then it's theirs. Now that's just, kind of the adult learning thing. So there's lots of notes for you. There's lots of stuff available. Now, in this particular section, it's about how do you start the money conversation. I'm not going to go into this. We've already kind of talked about this, but I want to just offer to you a couple of things that we've learned in the coaching side of the work. And this is when we try to avoid judgment. And I have to say, in all honesty, it took me well into my adult years to finally realize that maybe I don't know everything there is to know, and maybe what I think someone should do isn't always what's best for them. I think someone should open a checking and savings account. Well, that might not be best for them at this time. So there's two open-ended Socratic questions that are really cool. One question always starts with what works. So a social worker would say to the family member they're working with, what is going well for you in your money life? And the family member may say, who's in crisis, they'll go into all the things that aren't working. And the social worker will say, no, we're not going there, my friend. We're not going there right now. What's working well for you? Anything that's working well. Well, I've got a job. That's fantastic. Well, I guess I get paid. That's fantastic. Well, there's food in the house today. Fantastic. Well, I was able to pay this bill. Fantastic. What else is going well? Well, my parents died in bankruptcy and I'm not in bankruptcy yet. Fantastic. Now, that's the open-ended question, what's going well for you? What's working for you? Now I'm going to ask you another question. The question has to do with what keeps you up at night? What are you most worried about? What drives you crazy about your money life? And as people are overwhelmed and all these topics come down, I'm going to share a brief story. 2 weeks ago, I was in a home with a woman who was in one of the worst domestic abuse situations I've seen in my career. And I am not exaggerating. And the worker who was with this woman, she was absolutely overwhelmed. In the corner was a pile of paper, and on the top was a paper from, quote, the tax man, meaning the IRS. And this woman showed us her pictures. She had already been, the domestic abuse people had been there. She had been to court. There was a restraining order, and she had 4 children to feed. And what the worker did was she says, all right, darling, let's get a piece of paper and a pen. Let's just start. Where do you want to begin? First of all, what's going well? She said, well, I've got my children. Okay, what else is going well? I've still got my job. What else is going well? So they started that list. Now, what are we going to tackle first? Well, I've got to get to the doctor. And then what? I've got to get some medication because I'm so anxious. And then what? I need some help. And then what? I've got to talk to my employer about stopping my payroll check going into the bank because I know it will be taken because we own our bank account together. Okay, darling, let's start. And that worker just helped with one small step. Well, that's what goal setting is all about. Goal setting is about one small step. One small step. Nothing too big, nothing overwhelming, but it's got to be specific. It's got to be measurable. So, at the bottom here, if somebody wants to get out of their credit card debt, what are you most worried about? I'm worried about my debt. What kind of debt are you worried about? I got this credit card. I can never seem to get it paid off. All the interest, all the extra stuff that goes on. Every time I was supposed to get it for nothing, but then all of a sudden I make a purchase and it's not really following the fine print. I didn't really read the fine print and on it goes. Well, and now I've got $1,000. I got to pay this thing down. Well, what's it going to take, honey, to get this thing paid down? What's it really going to take? Well, I guess I've just got to do something, all right? So then what? Well, I have to make an action step. So I've got the total amount I need. I divide it by the number of weeks and how much I need to set aside to pay this credit card down. Or I got $1,000, and I'm going to take something from every paycheck every 2 weeks to pay this thing down, and I'm setting it aside. So we break it down. Or another family says, I always hit the holiday time. I never have any money for presents. Okay, how many weeks do you have before the holiday time? I've got 12 weeks. How much do you think you're going to need for presents? About $300. Well, that's about $25 a week. Or it's $25, $50 every pay period, or whatever it is. So goal setting is about breaking it down. These are the life events that I referred to before, and these are great exercises. I'm not going to go into that right now. Look at this guy, 28-year-old food service manager, diagnosed with cancer. He's married, has an infant. You could use this in the classroom where you assign in every group this situation, and they have to put down all the money issues that are related to this situation. And the moral of the story, oh, my God, I better start thinking about something beyond today. So planning for life events, this particular tool helps people do that. Buying a car, a lot of people don't know how to buy a car. They don't know how to finance a car. And if they've got bad credit, the interest rates are so bad, maybe they can buy a car. but this goes into that. There's also in the toolkit, and I cut all of it out except I wanted to show you this example. If you've got 10 minutes or you've got 30 minutes or you've got multiple sessions, it gives a lot of examples of what you could put together in training and in teaching. Savings, we've already gone through. We say savings is actual money that we set aside. And this is something that is a great thing to do with students in the classroom. And it's about emergency savings. The spark plug for the car is $350. Go to the right. If I use a payday loan and it's $15 for every $100 borrowed, it's almost 400%, almost a 400% APR. They got to pay it back. It's got to be paid back within 14 days, and you know that doesn't happen. This is all based on research that the CFPB has done. They pay $52 for every 14 days it's not paid back. And then it goes by, and all of a sudden, by the time they get this thing paid off, they paid $400 for a $350 bill. If they put in a credit card, and you go down to the bottom, they paid an extra $40 because of all the interest. If they have something in emergency savings, then it doesn't cost them anything extra, right? So it's got a tool for a savings plan, finding a safe place for savings, and this is the new numbers for the federal earned income tax credit. If someone files their taxes, look at the bottom and on the right, but they don't have children, or they don't file their taxes with a child as a dependent, they could get up to $500 or $510. If they file with one child, up to $3,400, two children, $5,600, three or more, $6,300, and this is just the federal side. They can get the earned income tax credit even if they don't owe any taxes. This is a policy built into our nation at the federal level. Many states have got state earned income tax credits that add to the federal. In one state I'm aware of, you could collect $10,000 in cash if you put both the federal and state together, and millions goes uncollected because people don't know about it. So throughout the country we have free tax sites. Volunteers like you and I trained by the IRS. Your social work students need to know about this stuff. A, they may need it themselves. B, they can help other people access it. Again, I'm just going to go into the next module here. This next set of information is about tracking what comes in and what goes out. And regular and irregular and seasonal and one-time occurrence income, it's important that people know how their income comes in. So you and I are lucky enough to have a paycheck. It's regular. Irregular might be, gosh, if I just get work. Seasonal might be the holiday time, or a carpenter, or a Native American that's swathing, rice in the fall, or a farmer. That's all seasonal. One time could be the earned income tax credit. So the idea is what comes in. Then the next thing we're going to look at is we're going to track what comes in. So if you look at the left-hand side, what social worker would put down, what he or she would do with a client, is they put down the sources that come in, the job, the second job, the self-employment, and they put in public benefits. The belief here is add every resource possible. Why? Because someday our families are going to be off of these public benefits and they need to know what the costs are. And, it's just important to add every resource, even a loan. If someone, whatever the public benefit is, and of course the earned income tax credit should be on this list, and it is in the toolkit, but we can't show it here. I love slides, but they're limited. So it's got the weeks, and then it's got, is it regular, irregular, seasonal, or one time? So the idea is there'd be one of these for every month: January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. And then people would actually write in what comes in and when. Not what I think is going to come in, but what is actual to come in, all right? So that's the income side. It goes through how people get paid, what are the pros and cons, and then I'm just going to go right into the next section, which is about paying bills. So we track what comes in. Now we're going to track what goes out. And spending is money that we use for needs and wants and obligations. Needs we've got to have. Wants we could live without. Obligations we must do or we're in trouble. And there's great exercises here. And then we track our spending so that we kind of know what's going out. So then we look at spending we cannot cut, spending we could eliminate and spending that we could reduce, because what we're trying to do is match what comes in and what goes out. Some people like to use a bill calendar. They'll just take a calendar, throw it in the kitchen. They'll just write down in pencil or pen when a bill is due. And your social worker students may do this themselves, and that's a good thing. No, nothing wrong with this. A lot of people do this. This is kind of how it's done. And then there's ways to pay bills and what the pros and cons are, especially if people don't bank. And there's strategies to cut expenses. Look at the cell phone plan, a lifeline rate, internet, cutting the internet, television, there's a lot of ways we can cut our expenses. I knew a banker in the state of Washington. She just pulled out the plugs in her entire where she lived. She kept on the refrigerator and the hot water heater. She went from $153 a month in utility costs to $26 the next month just by unplugging. So all the ways that these students, they know how to cut expenses. You could ask them, how do you cut your expenses? Buying things together. In some of our areas of the country, people will buy part of a cow together, all kinds of ways to try to make ends meet. Now we're getting through the months, and we're going to use cash flow, not the monthly budget. So just bear with me. This particular family starts the week with $37 and ends the week with $122. You'll look on week 2, they start the week with $122, and they end with $157. The good news is that they're in the black. They're not in the red. So if we go back to the beginning, what do they do? Well, they've got income from a job, 205. SNAP comes in. Of course, that's not cash. It's a card. It's a public benefit, but they still track it, $280. And then public housing voucher, $650, right? You add all that together, that's $1,272. Now, look at how the budget is set up. It's set up with needs, savings, emergency savings, housing, utilities, groceries, and then it goes to wants, eating out, and then transportation, maybe a want or a need, I don't know. So that's how that goes. So we're going to just do something together, and I'm going to ask you to use the chat function. Raphael is a single dad. He's got 2 children. He's late a lot with his bills. Why? Because when his money comes in and when it goes out doesn't line up. That's basically why. So the question we're going to look at is, when does he run out of money, and what could he do to better line up what comes in and what goes out? So I want you to look at this with me, and I think this chart is hard, and I'm sorry, but nothing else I can say about it. So here's a particular month. We're in the month of April. Pretend it's April. Look at the buckets. Week 1, 2, 3, 4. Look at the left-hand side. Everything that comes in, income from the first job, income from the second job. Remember, this is a single dad, and SNAP. All right? So you've got income from the first job that comes in the second and the fourth week. Probably in the next month, it'll come in the first and third week because he gets paid every other week. And, of course, we have some weeks that have 5 weeks that throws everything off. So you go first and third, second and fourth, first and third and fifth, and then you know how it goes, right? So in this particular month, he gets paid the second and fourth week. Now he's got a second part-time job, and he gets paid every week, same amount. So this guy's lucky in this sense. He's got regular income. He can count on his income, and, of course, this is his net after his taxes have been taken out. But then he gets SNAP in the first week of the month. That's food stamps, the old food stamp program, for 3 of them, $412, but he doesn't get anything else. And I want you to notice what's missing here, what should be here. Now look at the bottom. He starts with his obligations, his debt. Then he goes to savings. Then he goes to housing, his needs, utilities, his needs. Then he goes to groceries, his needs, eating out, his wants. Transportation, I would argue, is a need. Childcare is a need. I'd probably put eating out at the bottom, but, you know, that's not what happens here. All right? So look at how it goes across here. You've got a credit card payment of $90 in the third week. You've got a loan. He had a loan from a family member or a friend, and he paid him off in the fourth week of $100. He's paying his student loan in the second week. He's got his housing in the first week, and it includes his utilities. He's got his cable in the second week, $63. His internet, $22. His cell phone, I can't even read it, $86. And then he's got his household supplies, 25, and look at his food costs, 200, 80, 180. And of course that all adds up to more than 412. No judgment. We don't know what his situation is. Transportation, he's doing a car payment, 245. His gas costs 60 every week. His auto insurance is in the second week. And his child care, $70 every week. And he's got miscellaneous. We don't know what it is. But look at the bottom line. He subtracts what he spends in the first week from what comes in. He starts the week with 257, but he ends the week in a minus 361 because he's paying out more than what he brings in. So he starts the second week in the negative. He can't start in the positive because he doesn't have anything. So he starts in the negative. Well, he adds in his job and his part-time job, and he's at $849, but he subtracts everything that goes out, but he still has enough, so he's in the positive there by about $65. He carries the positive over to the third week. Well, then he adds in his job that comes in, $285, and then he subtracts everything he goes out, but he's in the negative again. He's bouncing all over the place. He starts again in the week 4 in the negative of 463. He adds in what he brings in, and then he takes out, and he's in the positive. So the goal is, what could this man do? What could this poor single dad do to try to balance it all out? And I want you to use the chat function. What could he do? What could he do to better match the timing of what comes in and what goes out? And I want to invite you to use a chat function and add in. And let me start. And I'm going to say he could have a courageous, I can't even spell it, conversation with his landlord and see if he could pay his monthly twice a month, his monthly rent. He could do that. What else could he do to better match the timing of what comes in and what goes out? What could he do with his bills? All right, so I'm going to help you out here. He can move around when they're due. The bill due dates. He could move his student loan payment to week 4. This may not work at first, but he should definitely start saving. So he could find some savings. He could shop for groceries on payday weeks. What else could he do? That student loan is pretty high. He could qualify for income-based repayment on a student loan and reduce his student loan payment. And it looks to me like his car insurance, I can't imagine he's driving a brand new car. That's pretty high. He could reduce his car insurance and find a different carrier. He could take some of the money from groceries on payday weeks and he could look at where miscellaneous is going and carve out something for savings. So the idea here, and you're doing a great job, is that he moves around what's due. Now, what's missing from the top? He's got income from a job, income from a part-time job, and SNAP. What's missing? What could he qualify for that's not showing up here that could help him better match the timing of what comes in and what goes out? We just went over it, the Earned Income Tax Credit. He could bring in the Earned Income Tax Credit and seed emergency savings and set some of it aside for his costs that go out. Look at what could be done with TV, internet, and cell. He could combine them all for a lower rate. Thank you, Bonnie. So the moral of this story is he could bring in, they said in Dakota County he would qualify for rent assistance. He might qualify for other types of assistance that isn't in the top part. So you want to look at any kind of resource that's going to help him better match the timing. And, of course, the Earned Income Tax Credit and the state tax credit because he's working. So he qualifies, but he's not claiming it. And if he claims it, it's not showing up here, and it needs to. All right. Now, the other thing I want to show you is on savings. In the book, there's savings for emergencies, savings for irregular bills, Those are the bills that come up a couple times a year, like he pays his car payment insurance, every month. But there's savings for goals. There's lots and lots of different kinds of savings in your book. We're just showing one layer right here, okay? So this is what the cash flow budget looks like. There's 5 weeks. On the left-hand side, your social work student and the people they work with, they would put in the sources that they've got and of course, include the earned income tax credit. And then they would put in, and look at this one, starts with credit card payments, payday loans, personal loans. They start with their obligations. And this cash flow budget goes on for 3 pages. The idea is to take the concept and use it. And social work students would like doing this for themselves. Once they learn how to do this, they'll help others know how to do it. Some people hate charts and they'd rather take a calendar and all you do is draw a line down the middle. You have Sunday through Saturday here. You draw a line down the middle. On the top, what comes in. On the bottom, what goes out. In this particular example, on the 17th of this month, SNAP came in, and on Saturday, they got paid. And then you add it together, that's the total. You do that at the end of the week in the calendar. And then underneath it, on the 17th, food went out, $180, and a phone bill was paid, $60. Then you get to Thursday, and there was a gas, auto gas, and then you get to finally Saturday, there's a car payment, right? So you add up all of what goes out, that's $450. You take $450 from $585, and you still are in the positive. People love a calendar because they can erase it, move their bills around, and make sure that they're making ends meet. And, I recommend it highly. So the goal is to increase what comes in, to decrease what goes out, and to move things around to better match the timing. And this particular tool shows how to negotiate, shows ideas, and this goes on for 3 pages about how to make ends meet. Debt, this whole thing on debt, we're not going to be able to go into all this, but good debt, bad debt, I just want to show you what's in it. Rent to own, how to co-sign an agreement, a loan. Gosh, there's so much in here that's brand new. Medical debt, the message here is avoid medical debt by getting the costs up front, getting discounts. Don't ever put it on a credit card. This is a big cause of bankruptcy in the country still today, medical debt. And then the tools are tracking the debt, how much debt is too much debt, and it shows how to do the debt-to-income ratio. All you do is you take all your debt payments and you divide it by your gross income, and then you have a ratio of a point something. And here are the guidelines. If you're a renter, try to have your debt below 20% or 20 cents of the dollar or a 0.20. Try. If you're a homeowner, try to have your cost, your principal, interest, taxes, and insurance below 28% or below 28 cents or below a 0.28. And if all your debt ought to be ideally below 36% or 36 cents of every dollar or a 0.36, this is a great visual you can show your social work students. This particular family's got 50 cents of every dollar goes to debt first. That only leaves 50 cents for everything else. Reducing debt, there's a couple different methods. The snowball method is where you have 2 credit cards. One is $100 and one is $200. You pay off the $100 first, and then you take that payment and you apply it to the next one, and you pay it off faster. It's like I'm in Minnesota. It's like like a big snowball that'll go down the hill. It'll go faster and faster and faster. Once you get one knocked off, then you knock off the next one. The higher interest rate, let's say you got 2 credit cards, one's at 29%, one's at 21%, you pay off the 29% credit card first, and then the 21%, because you have all that extra interest. So it shows people how to do that, how to repay student loans, all the options, it's all in there, all ready to rock. This is a great tool on the website for should you do this student loan or shouldn't you, and why, and what's it going to cost you, and how do you pay it off. When debt collectors call, if the debt isn't yours, there's letters in there for how to get, verify the debt, knowing your rights. It's illegal to use obscene language or threaten or anything like that. Credit, we just go in to pull the credit, make sure it's right, make sure every bucket here is accurate. These are the different credit reporting agencies. If there's something that's wrong, there's a way to dispute it. either online or in a letter. There's examples for how to do it. That's what the creditreport.com looks like. There's a lot of security questions. So, Twyla, I have to leave early, but I'm excited about this resource. Thank you, Twyla. Here's how you get annualcreditreport.com. Here's the FICO score. This is a big deal. If you look at the green and the blue-green, and you add that together, that's 65%. So somebody can increase their FICO score just by paying their bills on time and borrowing less than they're allowed to borrow. Pay your bills on time, borrow less than you're allowed to borrow. That's the fastest way to increase your FICO score. And the credit score is really important. And the tool shows how to get the credit report. This is the checklist to make sure it's accurate. And, is my marital status right? Is my employment right? And if it's not, this is how you file a dispute. It's all out there. The social work student can just follow along to file a dispute. Have them practice this. A lot of people who are poor, a lot of people who are middle class don't keep records. And it's really critical. This is a checklist for all the kind of financial records that should be kept. And then we get into money services, and there's a tool in here. Money is handled all over the place. You used to just go to the bank, or you used to just go to the post office to get a money order. Not any longer. Prepaid debit cards, employment paid cards. You go to a department store and you get a credit card. You go and buy a car and you sign up for your loan, and on it goes, and we can't hardly keep up with the costs and the fees and the ups and the downs. So what this particular tool does is it has people say, what do I need? What do I need? The CFPB doesn't say, go open a bank account. They don't do it. They say, I want a safe and secure place. I want to be able to make purchases without carrying cash. I want a low cost and easy way to manage my bills. I want to be able to pay my bills on time. I want to have my paycheck directly. I want to accumulate savings. Whatever the wants are, then it says, well, this is where you get all this stuff. And then the pros and cons. I'm not going to go into it, but it's all there for you. And then it goes into money services and banking basics. And there's ways, your social work students, it's so much fun. They have to explain what a checking account is to someone who's come into the country for the first time. How do you explain a checking account when someone has come into this country and it's not safe to bank? Well, you put your money, your hard-earned money in this building, and it's protected, and, they've got to explain this, and they're laughing. So banking, savings, prepaid debit cards, banking online, all kinds, and it's a great exercise you could use in the classroom. Checking account, prepaid debit card, money transfer. So they say what it is, they got to explain it, they got to explain it in front of the room, teach back, what are the benefits and the risks. Once they understand how to explain it, and a lot of people revert to pictures because it's so hard to explain, but it's a great exercise. Then there's the whole thing on money transfers. Everything must be disclosed. When money goes out of this country, there should be no surprises anymore. And it goes into protecting your money and how to submit a complaint, how to do that, how to actually go onto the website and do it. They take complaints on payday loans, student loans, vehicle loans, consumer loans, mortgages, any kind of a bank or savings account, debt collectors, credit card companies. Oh my God, it goes on and on and on. This is just a slide. So how do you submit a complaint? How do you protect your identity? It goes through all the ways of protecting your identity and all the opt-out. Get your name off of all the stuff that's sold and lent. Go in there and be proactive. Put a fraud alert on if you need to. So there's a lot in here on protecting your identity. Finally, resources. Lots of resources here. They'll be on the website. And I am going to turn it over to my dear, beloved colleague, Gina, who's going to close it out in the 6 minutes we have left.
Okay, thank you, Denise. You did such a wonderful job. I'm sure that everyone got a lot out of what you shared about, and you and Margaret both. So the last few slides are resources, references, and contact information associated with the presentation. So there are the selected resources. We have tons and tons of references. So these are just a few that we thought might be helpful. And then the resources for social work educators. So the Council on Social Work Education has its Economic Wellbeing Initiative, which I'm hoping that many of you know about already. And then, of course, your Money-Year goals, and then the National Endowment for Financial Education. They're doing a lot of work around this particular issue. And the next link is to our center. And then the last link is to the Grand Challenge that Margaret talked about. So, and then there is one other that we didn't list, and that is the University of Maryland. They have a financial social work initiative, and they're actually in their 10th anniversary, and we'll be sure to add this to the deck before we post it, so you'll have their information. Then our contact information, Margaret and I, it's there for you. And finally, you will receive an email with a link about all of this, all the PowerPoints, the recording. We'll have a link to this evaluation. But if you take a moment, we would appreciate you going to this particular link, which you should be able to press on it while it's on the screen, and take this brief, very brief. It's only 5 questions and a box for comments, and hopefully you'll be able to do that, and then there'll be another opportunity when we send the email. But before we end, I'd like to thank our presenters, Denise, Margaret, and the CFPB for co-hosting this webinar with us. We also want to thank our webinar participants. We know you're busy and could have chosen to do other things, but instead you took the time to spend with us, and for this we are grateful. Thank you again, and stay tuned for future events. Now, we do have a couple of minutes left if anyone wants to post a question in chat before we go.
And Gina, also, my good colleague Jen Lawrence has put this link in the chat function. You could right-click it and put it into a browser, and then you can get right to the survey also. So if you have any trouble with the slide, go ahead and right-click or copy, the information in the chat function and put it into a browser, and you'll be able to get right to the evaluation that way too. Thank you, Gina.
Thanks, Denise. Denise, do you have any closing words?
I just want to say that there are so many exercises, and as a professor, teacher, educator myself, you know, when I started in this field, I didn't know very much, and I was always worried about doing this topic when I didn't know very much. And when I got into it and really started learning it, I found that, and this is what we're learning throughout the country, that people who are in this field are learning this information in parallel to frontline staff and in parallel to the families. And that's a great thing. And so if any of you feel really shy about this topic, you're not alone. And I would just encourage you to take the risk and open it up, get it, order it, open it up, look at it, look at the exercises, bring it into your classroom. I can't tell you how much your social work students will benefit from this, and they will thank you for this because they need this themselves. And then their children need it, and their moms and dads or their caregivers need it, and the ones in their lives need it, and then their clients need it. And so we're climbing a mountain. Each of us on the phone here today is climbing a mountain of trying to bring this information as deep and as far and as wide as is possible, not to financial ruin, but to financial capability and to financial stability and to financial security. That's what we're about, and in this moment in time, we're climbing a mountain together. So please take the energy, open it up, use it, take it, run with it. And the last thing Patty said to me, I just saw her in Dakota County, please tell them all it's public domain, no copyright issues. Just take it and run with it. And also, disability guide, reentry guide, guide for Native American communities, there's Americans, Spanish, there's just so much there on that website. Just take the time and go there if you can. All right, I'm done.
Okay. Thank you, Denise, and thanks again. And just know that I'm available to answer any questions or have a discussion with at any time. Just email me and let me know. Thank you, everybody.